I am the disabled guy with the disabled life. So, this podcast is going to be about some disabled issues, a little bit about my life, but more of current events, sports, and those type of things, and things that are of interest to the disabled community. Like, let's say, uh, let's talk about something. Example: ADA, those type of things like that. Things that affect the community is something that's important to me, and some current events where I will pick a news story that I know it will affect the disabled community, and I will tell you how I feel about it. A lot of this podcast is going to turn into how I feel about what's going on in this world, always from the perspective of a disabled individual and disabled person. Once again, what I call myself is a disabled guy. The podcast name is The Disabled Life. To start out today, I'm going to talk about the ADA. I'm going to talk a little bit about history of the ADA. I've researched this. I was wrong. I thought that the ADA started in 19. It started when Ronald Reagan signed it. No, sir. It started way before that. It started in the 60s a little bit. The 60s, 70s with sit-ins. What are sit-ins? Let me explain to you what sit-ins are. I don't know if you remember during in school when you were taught Black history. In Black history, um, the the civil rights movement wanted rights, and for Black people they couldn't vote, etc. So we wanted rights for they wanted rights for that. They had to sit in the back of buses and all that stuff. So uh, so that's what the disabled movements were modeled against in the 60s, 70s. So what started happening is um, the disabled community had no rights. We had no rights to meaningful employment, medical insurance, and all these things. And parents were getting pissed off because in schools, children were being discriminated against. Okay, so a movement started to change this, which is important. Here, okay, so what happened was people were getting mad. They were doing sit-ins. They were doing all these things similar to the black rights movement. I'm gonna call it. So they were doing all this. So now what happened with ADA is ADA really got started in when Ronald Reagan signed it. Ronald Reagan was the one that signed the ADA, but it started way before that. There was a I think it was a week's worth of protests in government buildings in California. So the disabled people would go there and sit there, and they sat in there. They just waited and sat there, and some of them got arrested, and all these things happened. All these things happened. They got arrested, and all these stuff. So basically, what happened was we had no accommodation. Um, Another thing that happened, that all that started happening. We had unfair housing. We had no accessibility to public housing, hotels. There were places where people were told, no, you can't go into the movie theater because we don't want you in here. That happened to a little girl. Oh my God. So it was terrible because that happens. That happened. Nowadays you can't do that. So all these people started getting mad, which I understand. I would be mad too if I wanted to go somewhere and I could not get there. I could not get in there. There are certain places that are not accessible, and I understand that certain things cannot be. But it was maddening. So this woman decided to decided to start a movement, and all this happened, and then they had housing. They had to put the Fair Housing Act together, and all this stuff. They had to do all this. So, so what happened was, let me go to a little bit to the medical side of things. Um, some some doctors. So before I go there, then there was this movement of not institutionalizing the children, people that had disabilities. Then there was a movement also to um, give them services in the community to make them live in the community instead of institutions. Because, some people need institutions, but most of us don't. We are able to live semi independently in our homes. Like, for example, with me, if you give me some food, if you give me food, I can basically spend the day here at my home on my own, alone, and I can, as long as I eat, which I can do. Um, just for an example, just me. Um, so what I did when my mom was working in Winn Dixie at one point. So what happened? What she would do? She would leave me food in the microwave, not in the microwave. Sorry, in the fridge, and then I would take it or sit down near the kitchen, near the microwave, and I would eat right there. I would bring the food out and bring the food out of the microwave of the fridge, put it in the microwave, warm it up, and eat it. And that was it, and I was able to do that, and I'm still able to do that, which I have not been able to. Have not needed to do it because she retired, and things happened and they were better. So okay, back to my story here. So they were having this problem of unfair housing, people not wanting hotels. One of the stories that I saw while I was doing research for this, buses were not a public transportation was not accessible. So what the disabled did is they blocked buses from moving. They blocked buses from moving. So what did people? Then they got arrested. But in a way, it was good because sorry. In a way, it was good because what happened was people started to see this disabled people have a movement. So they started gathering, and getting lawyers, and all this stuff started happening. And I believe people were pro bono. If you don't know what pro bono is, some people were not. Some lawyers were just working for them for free to help this movement. So one of the things, one of the things that happened is that the disabled community became a community that had lobbyists in the government, and they lobbied the government. They had meetings. They had high level meetings. If it wasn't for all this problem, all these things, these high level meetings would never happen. And people were writing letters to the president. They were writing letters to the president. They were doing all these things that would help them. And finally, people said, "Wait a minute." So that's when they started to sign that's when they started to sign the documentation, and the law got signed. It's so but let me tell you, I wasn't still when I started in school. We had no ADA, but luckily we had schools. But it's so hard. Schools were hard, and everything was hard. It's this life as a disabled person is not easy. This life is hard, and then these no laws would help. These no laws were making life difficult. Could you imagine if you couldn't go to a hotel, if you needed to go to a hotel or motel? Could you imagine if they didn't have accessible rooms? Could you imagine if they didn't have elevators accessible? All this, and I can, I still remember day and day when this was happening. Because let me tell you, when I was in school, there was this thing going on, still this going on, and as I grew up in the 90s, things started to get better and better, but they're still not where they need to be. So that's my story on how ADA is started. I want to give you a link. I'm gonna put in my show notes the actual. I'm gonna put in my show notes a link to the story, to what I read about ADA if you want to find out more about it. But ADA to me was interesting because I didn't even know myself a lot about it. I learned about ADA and what ADA is and how it started, because ADA is something important to the disabled community. Oh, let me tell you some stories here of something of education. I almost forgot. Sorry, I almost forgot about education. So there was a person. I think it was a female person. She wanted to become a nurse, but she is or was. I don't know if she passed or not. She wanted to go to school, and she wanted to go to school to become a nurse to one of the local 2-year colleges. So she applied, and they told her no, you cannot apply because you are disabled. You cannot hear. I understand that in patient care, you need to hear or get another accommodation. But there's other jobs that nurses do that don't require patient care. You could be a nursing administrator. You could be, you could be a teaching coordinator as a nurse. There's jobs that you can do. But I'm saying, but what they wanted to do is say no, you cannot be a nurse. I don't like that. I don't agree with that. That's something obnoxious that this ADA has helped with. There's still some barriers, yes, but it's getting better. So yeah, and so a lot of people were, like there was a kid in the story I read, and researching for this topic here. And the history of ADA, I think it's called. Yeah, I'm gonna put in my show notes. So there was a kid that had a problem with AIDS. They didn't know. They needed to find out how to. At that point, undertakers would not want to handle AIDS, and there was a child with AIDS. Another thing they needed to figure out, because a lot of people thought that we couldn't go to college or school because of a disability. And that's not correct. But they were using that. They were using that to keep us down. I say the word keep us down. So they had to find a way, find out what people could do and what they couldn't do in order to get this ADA thing straightened out. Because this is not. So what they had to do, find that they thought that just because you were disabled, you couldn't do what you do. I'm going to give you an example of my own self here. Again, for those of you that don't know, I'm an amateur operator, also an accredited volunteer examiner. Okay, so what I do now is I can either go onto the site and use my phone or my tablet to work the exam, or using a Zoom meeting, I can also do the same. But the reason I need a Zoom meeting is I would need a camera to observe the actual test site remotely. I can work remotely from home. Yeah, but okay. Another accommodation that is required, for example, if you need help as a person that is disabled, and you need extra time taking tests, we can as examiners we're required to assist you in any way that's legally appropriate. So, honestly, yes, the ADA has helped. It has helped off a lot, but it has a lot to be desired. We still have a lot to do. There's still a lot of things that need to be different, change. Um, okay, let me talk about STS a little bit. I don't like STS in a way because STS is a very, very difficult service to use. It's not, there's no competition. It's contracted. So, it's contracted. So, so they, it's like they make you late, etc. So, I'm glad it's there. I can use it, but I don't like it because it's not easy to use. You can be stuck somewhere for an hour and waiting for a vehicle. But I wish they would do something better. But that's okay. But that at least is their ADA made that happen. So and a lot of places that wasn't there. So it's something. Hold on, let me turn this up. So it's something that uh, as disabled people, um, I'm glad to have what we have. But I say again, but I also know that you know, you know, ADA still needs. We still have to work on things. We still have to advocate for ourselves. It's not an easy process. I've had to do it. You don't remember? I was advocating for myself even before I knew what I was doing, but I was doing it because there was times where I'm like, this is incorrect. I have never been told no by my family. My family is supportive when it comes to that stuff. Very supportive. When I want to do something, they find a way. Or they let me find a way to do it. They let me find a way to do it. For example, when I wanted to take the amateur radio test, my dad joined me in a class that could help me. And when I became when I found out I wanted to become an examiner, he helped me do the work to get the accreditation I need. So I appreciate my family for the help that they've given me. And when I do volunteer work, they also assist. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad, for driving me where I need to go on time. On time because sometimes I don't want to go on STS because I don't know. It's a it's a double-edged sword. It gives you independence, yes, but it also can make you late, or you have to go really early prior to the time that you need to be somewhere, which is inconvenient sometimes, very inconvenient. Yeah, it's important. To me, it's important. To me, it's really important that we continue to advocate for ourselves. We continue to talk to and we continue to go in there and file complaints when we need to with whoever we need to. Um, you know, and also there was a problem with this is not ADA, but I'm gonna be honest with you. There is a problem with reproductive rights and also um, reproductive rights and disabled people not being able to get married, and they're able to get married. I'm not gonna say no, but they lose the benefits. I don't think that's right. I think they should find a way to fix that. That's something we need to do. Once again, thank you for listening to my episodes. I am the disabled guy with the disabled life. So, let me tell you where you can listen to me. You can listen to me on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, many others, and you can also leave comments, messages there on Apple Podcast and on Spotify and on Good Pods. Those are the places you can leave messages for me. And if I decide to put the link in, you can also leave messages. If you are a Spotify account holder, you can also leave a message with us on that, and I'll be happy to put those in. Now, also, one thing you can do is follow me on Twitter. I'm gonna be a lot more active on Twitter, and maybe a few other social media spots. With that, thank you for listening. My episodes are gonna come out Saturday and Wednesday, both 10 p.m. Either 10 Eastern or 10 Daylight Savings Time, depending on when the episodes are recorded, the time of year. Once again, thank you for listening. I'm gonna come back up here for a second because I have something very special coming up soon. I'm not gonna tell you what it is, but I have something very special that I'm very excited about. And see you next week. See you Saturday. I'm sorry about that. See you Saturday.